Welcome to the deep dive. So today we're diving into something, well, pretty fundamental, right? Consciousness.
Yeah, what actually makes us us? How does this thing in our heads work?
Exactly. How does this amazing brain generate our whole inner world? It's something I think most people listening have probably wondered about.
Oh, absolutely. It's a huge question. And a key part of that mystery is this really fascinating puzzle.
Which is,
Well, how our brains manage to do things so incredibly quickly, complex decisions, processing tons of info, when the actual cells, the neurons, are kind of slow.
right, relatively speaking. That's the paradox we're going to dig into today, isn't it?
Precisely. And there's some really intriguing new research that might shed some light.
Yeah, I saw that. It suggests the brain's secret might be operating at what they call the edge of chaos.
Mm-hmm. And maybe even more surprising, the maths they're using to describe this. It comes from quantum physics.
Okay, quantum physics and the brain. That always gets attention.
It does.
Mhm.
But what's really compelling here is how this specific state, this edge of chaos, seems linked to consciousness itself.
So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack that. What is this edge of chaos in the brain? And what's this quantum connection all about?
Exactly. Let's try and get under the hood.
Okay, let's start with the brain's performance. Because, you just go about your day and your brain is doing incredible things constantly.
Totally. Like you're walking, a cyclist suddenly swerves.
And you react instantly. You jump back.
Right. You didn't consciously calculate trajectories or anything. Your brain just did it. Processed sights, sounds, made a prediction, moved your muscles.
All in a fraction of a second. Feels
Right.
effortless.
It does. Or think about driving, constantly adjusting, reacting. It's an immense amount of processing.
But then, like you said, you look at the basic building blocks, the neurons, and they're slow.
Yeah, the signals jumping between them take maybe 10, 20 milliseconds,
Mm.
which, in the world of computer chips and nanoseconds.
Is ancient. It feels like dial-up internet compared to fiber optic.
Yeah, something like that. A modern computer does billions of things in the time one neuron fires once.
So that's the central puzzle then. How does this, sluggish network create such rapid, complex thought and awareness?
That's the million-dollar question. And this is where that idea of criticality comes in, this edge of chaos.
Okay, edge of chaos. It sounds precarious, like the brain's about to fall apart.
Yeah, it does sound dramatic, doesn't it?
Oh, but
In physics and complex systems, it means something specific.
which is?
It's like a balance point, a transition zone. It's not rigid, perfect order where nothing ever changes.
Okay,
But it's also not complete, useless randomness either. It's right there on the border.
the sweet spot.
Exactly. The sweet spot where interesting things can happen, where complexity and new patterns can just
Yeah,
emerge.
right. I think the paper used an analogy to make it clear. Something about immigration.
Ah, yes, the immigration policy analogy is quite helpful, actually.
Walk us through it.
Okay, so imagine one extreme, a country with zero immigration, totally closed borders. That's extreme order.
Stable? Maybe, but probably stagnant. Not much dynamism.
Precisely. Not very adaptable. Now picture the other extreme. Zero rules. Anyone can go anywhere, anytime. Total open borders.
That sounds like, chaos? Potential breakdown of services, social structures?
Could be, yeah. Complete chaos. So you have rigid order on one side, total chaos on the other.
Okay, got the extremes.
The interesting stuff, the complexity, like cultural exchange, economic growth, innovation that tends to happen somewhere in the middle.
Where there are some rules, some structure, but also openness to new things.
Exactly that. Enough order for stability, enough freedom for novelty and adaptation. That middle ground is the critical state, the edge of chaos.
Okay, that makes more sense. It's not about being in chaos, but being right at the point where complexity can arise, primed for change.
You got it. And this state, this critical range, is where you get these emergent properties popping up.
And one key feature of systems in this state is long-range connections.
Yes. Long-range correlations. That's crucial. It means different parts of the system, even bits that are far apart, are somehow connected and can influence each other.
So it's not just neighbors talking to neighbors. Stuff happening over here can affect things way over there.
Exactly. Think of it like ripples spreading across a whole pond,
Yeah.
not just locally. There's a global coordination possible.
Okay. Are there examples of this criticality elsewhere besides hypothetical immigration policies?
Oh, definitely. Physics has examples, like Bose-Einstein condensation, where atoms act as one giant quantum wave that's extreme correlation.
Right.
But you also see hints of it in things like, say, stock markets right before a crash, moving from ordered trading to chaotic selling. That transition point has critical features, or even sand piles avalanching.
Sand piles. Really?
Yeah, a grain of sand can trigger a tiny slip or a huge avalanche. The system is poised right at that critical point.
Huh. Okay, so bringing it back to the brain. The idea is that our brain operates in this critical zone.
That's the core proposal. It's not stuck in rigid firing patterns, and it's not just random noise. It lives in this dynamic balance, this edge of chaos.
And it can maybe shift around a bit, lean more towards order or chaos, depending on what we're doing.
That seems plausible, yes.
Yeah.
And the key benefit of being in this state is leveraging those long-range correlations we talked about.
Uh-huh. And that connects back to the speed puzzle, right?
Exactly. This is how they think the brain solves it.
How so?
Because if distant brain regions are linked by these correlations, they don't need slow step-by-step messages. Information can kind of cascade across the network much faster.
Even though the individual neuron-to-neuron steps are slow.
Right. The global network structure, enabled by criticality, allows for rapid coordination. Different areas can almost anticipate each other and sync up quickly.
Okay, so it's like the messengers are slow, but they have an incredibly smart network map that lets the message jump across town instantly.
That's a pretty good way to put it, yeah.
Huh.
The system becomes fast, even if the components aren't.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And it wasn't just speed, was it? Didn't the research mention energy efficiency, too?
Oh, yeah. That's another mind-blowing part. The brain runs on, what, 20 watts?
Well, a dim light bulb, it's crazy efficient.
Crazy efficient, especially when you compare it to, like, a supercomputer needing megawatts, millions of watts.
So being at this edge of chaos might also be the most energy efficient way to run such a complex system.
That's the hypothesis. It seems this critical point might be optimal for both speed and power consumption. Nature's found a very clever solution.
Truly incredible. Okay, now let's get to the part you flag as really surprising, the quantum physics connection.
Right, this is where it takes a bit of a left turn.
They're using math from quantum mechanics to measure this criticality.
Yes, they found that mathematical tools, frameworks, typically used to describe quantum phenomena, especially quantum systems at critical points, actually worked really well.
Worked well how?
They could apply this math to fMRI brain scan data.
Functional MRI showing brain activity.
Exactly. And using this quantum-inspired math, they could calculate a score, a measure of how critical the brain's activity was.
Okay, and what did they find?
Well, they look at data from over 1,000 people, and this criticality score could actually distinguish between different states of consciousness.
You mean like awake versus asleep?
Precisely. They could reliably tell if someone was awake or asleep just by looking at this measure of brain criticality derived from quantum math.
Whoa! Okay, that is surprising. So it suggests this critical state isn't just about processing speed, it's tied to awareness itself.
It strongly points that way. A potential link between operating at the edge of chaos and being conscious.
And this seems important. They're not saying the brain is a quantum computer, right? We need to be clear on that.
Absolutely. Crucial distinction. Yes, the researchers emphasize this.
So it's not like there are qubits or quantum entanglement happening in our neurons in the way a quantum computer works.
No, that's not what this study implies. It's more that the mathematical language developed for quantum critical systems seems to be a really good way to describe the dynamics of the brain near its critical point.
So the math fits even if the underlying physics is different. Like using the same equation to describe wave motion in water and in light, maybe?
That's a decent analogy. The deep reason why this particular math works so well for the brain. That's still an open question.
It's just a powerful description of complex interconnected systems poised for big changes.
That seems to be the most likely interpretation right now. The math captures the essence of those long-range correlations and the system's sensitivity.
Okay. Still fascinating, even without invoking actual quantum computation in the brain. So what about the bigger picture? What does this mean for, say, artificial intelligence?
Well, it could be really significant. The researchers kind of suggest that AI development might have missed a trick by not focusing enough on this criticality principle, meaning that maybe our current AI, often built on very predictable ordered structures, might be lacking something essential for, true complexity or adaptability, or maybe even consciousness.
So to get truly smart, maybe even conscious AI, we might need to build systems that can operate near this edge of chaos, that can handle a bit of instability.
That's the implication. Perhaps future AI needs the ability to dip its toes into chaos, so to speak, to unlock emergent intelligence and creativity.
Makes you think of that Nietzsche quote.
You must have chaos within you to give birth to a dancing star.
Exactly. Maybe a system that's too orderly just can't innovate or, well, wake up.
It's a compelling thought. Maybe that blend of order and potential chaos is necessary for the kind of flexible, adaptive intelligence we see in biology.
Okay, so let's try and sum this up. This new research points to the brain operating at this edge of chaos, this critical state,
Mm-hmm. And this state is characterized by these long-range connections.
which allows the brain to process things quickly and efficiently despite having slow neurons. Solves that paradox.
Right. Speed and efficiency seem linked to this state.
And really unexpectedly, the math from quantum physics helps describe and measure this critical state.
Yeah, providing a score that seems to correlate with our actual state of consciousness, awake or asleep.
Though, again, not saying it's a quantum computer in our heads.
Correct. The math fits. The reason why is still under investigation.
It paints a picture of the brain constantly performing this delicate balancing act between order and randomness.
And it's in that balance that consciousness and high-level cognition might emerge. It's pretty profound.
It really is. The sheer cleverness of using slow parts to build something so fast, efficient, and well-aware.
It's a testament to evolution, I suppose.
Definitely. And it leaves you wondering if consciousness is tied to this criticality, this balance point.
Right.
What does that mean for other complex systems?
Could we apply this thinking to social networks, ecosystems, AI development, as we discussed?
Where else is that balance between structure and chaos the key to something amazing emerging? It's certainly food for thought for our listeners. Where do you see this edge of chaos playing out?
A great question to ponder.
Thanks for diving deep into this with us today.
My pleasure. Fascinating stuff.